J of Sui Devs, this is Blockchain Bad. Today I'm going to be talking about vector. So vector is a collection of elements of the same data type. So look at vector as a container which can hold elements of the same data type. So let's come over to our drawing board and let me give an analogy. So now let me draw this now. Imagine this as a container and it can hold different elements. So let's say this vector is going to hold like 4 elements. So they must be of the same type. Let's say of type U8 or U64. Just know that they must be of the same data type. It can hold numbers of U8, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in this vector, if you're holding U8, all your elements must be U8. If you're holding a string, all the elements in the vector must be a string. If you're holding a Boolean value like 3 or 4, zeros and ones, all of them must be Boolean value. So they cannot hold both string, U8, U64. No, they can't. So it means it is homogeneous. Another thing again is that a vector in Sui Move is dynamic in sizing, so it can grow and it can reduce. So now you can add more elements to this vector. So the more you keep adding elements, the more it keeps going. You can add 5, 6, and so on and so forth. And also, you could also reduce. It can also be reduced, so it goes and it reduces. So it means it's dynamic in sizing. One thing again about vectors is that it is zero index. So it means that this first element here is represented by 0. This second element is represented by 1. The third element is represented by 2, and this fourth is represented by 3. So it is 0 index. Another thing about vectors again is generic. It can hold generic stock. So it means that it can hold an object, any stock at all. It can hold maybe object of different, maybe your custom data. It can hold that. It can hold elements. So it is, while it is homogeneous, it can still hold elements of different data types. So now let me use a fruit as an example. Now let's say we have a basket and this basket can only hold mango fruits. So this basket can only put mango fruit into this basket. You can't combine apple and watermelon. So look at the vector as that basket that can hold only one fruit. They cannot be combined. So one thing again is that they can be a vector inside a vector. So now I'm using the fruit analogy. Let's say we have these two vectors here, this vector. So now they can be a vector that holds these other vectors. So now using the fruit analogy, so now this basket can only hold fruits. This big basket can only hold fruit. While this inner basket can hold maybe let's say particular fruit. So this inner basket can only hold apple, only apples, only apples. This other one can only hold let's say mangoes only. So this other bigger basket only holds fruits. You cannot come and put car into this basket. And mind you, both vectors can grow. You can keep adding more fruits. You can keep adding maybe another basket of watermelon, another basket of apple. You can just keep adding and keep adding and keep adding. And these other big baskets will keep growing. And also again, you can these other inner baskets can also be growing. Let's say if there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say there are 6 apples here. You can keep adding to this other basket and it can keep growing. And also inside this other basket, let's say you can maybe let's say you can hold another vector, and let's say that vector can hold maybe a particular species of fruits. So look at vector like that. So let's go and start writing codes. So heading over to VS Code, you can just create a new move package using Sui Move new, then your package name. I called my vec. I'm going to be writing code in the tests. So to use vector, we have to use the keyword vector. So which is gotten from the standard library. So if you do use std, then vector. But there's no need for us to import vector again because it's already provided by default. So if you look at it, unnecessary alias vector. So it's already provided by default. So we don't need to import that again. So now let's say we want to create a vector that can hold numbers. So to do that, we have to start with the keyword vector. Then next is empty. After writing vector empty, before the open and close bracket, you have to specify the data type. So let's say our vector is going to be of type U64. Then let's assign it to a variable. Let me call it numbers. So numbers, so if you look at it by default, Sui already knows it's a vector of type U64. So this vector can only hold values of U64. It can't hold boolean value. So now let's add um numbers to our vector. So to add numbers to our vector, you can do it in two ways. So it's either you do start with the keyword vector, then push back, then what are we going to assign first? First of all, we're going to assign our vectors. So if I copy this and paste here, then what are we adding? Let's say I want to add 75 to our list of vectors. So you look at it, we're having some errors. So we have to pass in numbers as a mutable reference. So to do that, you're going to do and mute numbers. And again, you see have a an error. So in the last tutorial video, I talked about mutable and mutable references. So right now, by default, this number, like I told you, if you assign a value to a variable, that value is immutable by default. So to make it mutable, we have to use the keyword mute before the variable name. So if you look at it now, that error has popped up. So let me print out a vector. So let me get the debug. So I can now say debug, then print. Then what am I going to print? I'm going to print number. So I'm going to pass in immutable reference of number. So debug the print takes in an immutable reference. So to pass in an immutable reference, I have to start with the and symbol, then numbers. So first of all, let me print the numbers before adding a value to it, and also after. So I'm going to open our terminal and do Sui Move tests. So if you look at it, first of all, we printed our vector when it was empty. Then we added 75 to it and we printed it. So you look at it now, we've printed our no our vector, our numbers. So now the next thing we can do is that we can also, let me add one more number to it. So like I said, there are two ways to add a number to a vector. This is the first way, but there's an easier way to do that. So to do that the easier way, we can just say numbers dot, I can now say push back. Then what am I adding? Let me see, I'm going to add 20. Now look at it now. This is the easiest way to do that. So you can choose to do it this way or this way, but me, I find it doing this way easier. So if I print again, you're going to see an empty array, then 75 and 75 20. So the next thing we can do is to, okay, I did not print after adding 20, but if you run the code, you're going to see that you're going to print 75 and 20. So next thing we can do, we can actually get the length of the vector. So it means that how many elements are in the vector. So right now we have just 2 elements in the vector. So to do that, I can get it either in two ways. I can just do vector, then I'm going to access the length function, then I'm going to pass in my vector of type numbers. So if I pass that in, that's one way of doing that. Okay, so we need to pass in an immutable reference. So we need to add the and symbol. So that's one way of getting the length. So let me just say let numbers length equal to this. So this is one way of doing that, but just like I said, similarly to the previous example I gave, you can just do it by saying we can just say numbers dot length. So this way is very easy. So if I see now, if I try to print out the length of the numbers, so the bulk print, I'm going to pass in an immutable reference. So numbers length. So I need to put a semicolon here. So if I do this, it's going to print 2 as the length of the vector. So the next thing we can do, look at it now, we printed, first of all, printed 75, 75, 20, then 2. That's the length of our vector. one thing we can do, we can access each element. So just like I told you, this 75 is the first number in the vector, and its index is zero index. So this 75, if you want to get that value there, you have to pass in the index. So now to get 75, you have to pass in the index. So now let's say we want to get 75. What we can do now, we can just do numbers. I'm going to do this here way. So I'm going to say numbers dot, sorry, yeah, it's numbers dot borrow. So what are we borrowing? Let's say I want to borrow the first value, so I'm going to pass in 0. So now let me print that. Let me say debug, then print. So if you look at it now, right now we're borrowing this value immutably. So that's why if you look at it now, we passed it without already passing an into reference, because on its own, let me show you. So now if I come here and let's say let's first number is equal to, let me copy this and paste it here. So if you look at it now, automatically Move told you that this is an immutable reference that it got right there. So there are two ways to borrow, like to get an element. So firstly is using the mute, sorry, the borrow. So this now, if I just print this out, you see you're going to print out 75. So but I'm actually going to print it away at 75. So that's it. So this way now we borrowed it mutably. So to borrow it mutably, let's say we want to change the value. Maybe we don't have a number. Then let's say maybe we have a stock. I want to edit that stock. We can just say borrow mute. This is the way to borrow a value mutably. So now using that borrow without a mute means we are just borrowing it with, we're just accessing the value without changing it. But when we want to change the value, we are going to use borrow mute. So the next thing we can do is removing a number from a vector. So now there are two ways to do that. First of all, let's say we want to remove the last value, the last element in the vector. So let's say we want to remove the last value, which was 20. So to do that, we're going to use a pop back. So now let's say I want to remove the first element. I can also name, sorry, the last element. I can also say numbers dot pop back. Then with this, I can actually remove the last element. I'm going to return the last element. So let me say let's last number is equal to numbers dot pop back. So once we do pop back, it's going to remove it from the vector and return the value it removed. So now let me print, as I've moved it, let me say debug print. Then let me try to print the vector again, which is numbers. Then let me also print the removed value, which is last number. So debug print last number. So if I run this code again, you're going to see that we're going to print out just one element from the array and also 20. Now if you look at it now, our array is 75, that's the only number left, and then 20. So one thing we can also do again is that let me comment out this line of code. So now let's say we want to remove this 75 rather than the 20. So what we can do is that we can remove an element based on its index. So now let's say we want to remove 75. So what's the index of 75? It's actually 0. The index of 20 is 1. So now if we want to remove 75, what we can do, we can do numbers dot remove. So what's the index of the number we're removing? Let's say, or the element, let me say 0. So now this is going to return us that 75 removed. So now let me print that out. So let me say debug print, then it's going to be a mutable reference. So if I do that, let me try to print is stocked also after removing it. I'm sorry, debug print, then numbers. Now it's going to be an immutable reference here. Let me give my closing semicolon. So if you look now, only 20 we left in the array. So if you look at it, only 20, then 75, which we removed from the array. Another thing we can do, let me just remove this comment out this code. Another thing we can do, we can check if a vector is actually empty or not. So now to check if a vector is empty, we can just say numbers, which is our vector, dot I think it's empty, right? Yeah, it's empty. So this is going to return true or false. So now let me print that out. Debug print. This is going to be an immutable reference. So now actually if we print this, it's going to return, why is this giving an error? So I put 3 instead of 2. So now if I print this, it's going to, or if I print, it's going to show false, because actually our vector is not empty. It's actually the actual elements in it. But if I come here and put this code, if you look at this, it printed false. So now if I come here and keep this code before adding any numbers to our vector, find elements to our vector. So if you look at it now, first of all, to print false, true before printing false. So come up here, look at this true, because first of all, our vector is empty before I added elements to our vector. So another thing we can do again is that we can actually insert a number at a particular index. Now right now I'm using numbers because our vector is of type is64, so it's generally going to be numbers. It can be of types bool, string, whatever element you want to put in. It can be maybe a custom class or a stock. So let's say we want to insert an element in a particular index. So now doing that, we can do that with vector. Sorry, I don't use vector, let me just use numbers. So numbers dot, I think it's insert, then what am I inserting? I think let me insert 33, then at the index of 1. So now if I do that, after having 75, I'm going to have 33 as the next number before 20. So after doing that, let me try to print a vector again, a vector of numbers. So let me print it out again so that you see it. So if I run tests on this, we're going to see that we have 75, then 33, because we inserted 33 at that index. Then we have 20. Then just like I said here, you can actually remove that number. So okay, yeah, you can actually remove that element from this index. So another thing you can do again is that you can actually swap the index of two elements. So now let's say I want to swap position of 75 and 33. I want 33 to sit at the 0 position, while 75 should sit at the first position. So that's the 1. Sorry. So to do that, I can just say I think it's vector swap. So yeah, I can just say numbers dot swap. So what index and what index am I swapping? I'm swapping the values of index 0 and 1. So the first index will be 0, then the second index will be 1. So if you look at it now, if I print this vector out, that's still going to be the first element in the index, while 75 will be the second element. So let me just print that out. If I do debug print again, then I run my test, Sui Move test. Let's wait for it. So if you look at it now, we swapped the index of the two elements. So now this is going to be the first element, like I said, is going to be 93. Then the next is going to be 75. So another thing we can do again is that we can actually check if a vector contains a particular value. So now to do that, let's say we want to check if our vector contains 20 as an element. So we can just say vector column contains, but let me just, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to do numbers dot contains. So what value do you want to check? Let's say do our vector contain 20? Given integer expect and so we are supposed to pass in an immutable reference. So to do that, now this is going to return a boolean value. So let's print that out. Right now, if I do that, it's going to print true, because debug print true. It's going to print true because our vector actually contains 20. So if I do that, yeah, like I said, going to print true. So now let's say I want to check for 100, and which definitely we know that we've not added 100 to our vector. So if I check if 106, it's actually going to print false. So yeah, look at it, printed false. So another thing we can do again, we can actually reverse the way our elements in our vector have been arranged. Let's say we want to swap, I want to reverse our vector. So when I make reverse, the first value, rather than having 33, 75, and 20, we want our first value to be 20, second value to be 25, 75, then our last value to be 20. So first of all, if I do that, let me just add one more element to the vector. So let me say let's just push back here. Let me add another element. So I'm going to comment this to out. Then let me add on 100 to our vector. Then let's say I want to reverse it, so I can just say numbers dot reverse. So before reversing, let me print our vector before reversing and after reversing. Let's see the difference. So if I do this, then put in the command Sui Move test. So now look at it at first. We had 33 as our first element, 75 second element, 20 third, and 100 as fourth element. So now after doing this reverse, we actually swap the arrangement. So now the first became the last and last became the first, then vice versa. So if you look at it now, we now have 120. So these are some functions you can get from vector. So you could actually head over to this documentation on Sui. There you can see different functions we have, the empty reuse, pullbacks. You can see a lot of them. I will not be able to go through all the functions in this video. So you can just head over to this documentation. I'll keep the link in the description. You can come and read about them and try to implement them on your own. So heading over to our VS Code, let's go to our main module. Let me show you how you can try to use a vector with struct. So now let's say, let me write my first struct, public struct, then let's say foots. Let's just say foots. Then it's going to have, let's just say, let's give the key ability. Then this is going to hold a vector, let's say let's call it fruits again. Then it's going to hold a vector of string. Now this is how you can actually initialize a vector, or tell a stock that's fine, I want a vector. So you can just write vector, then give it the type it wants to hold. So now the reason I did an error because I need to import string from the standard library, so I have not done that yet. Import string, then capital letter string. So That's how to do that. So now I can now say um let's just say phone neat, then late fruits, late fruits equal to fruits, then id going to be object, new, they're going to pass in the international context. Then next, fruits. So now at first we have no fruits, so what we can do, we can just say vector empty, it's going to be of type string. So our fruit is going to be of type string, so we can just put our semicolon. Then you can choose to let's just transfer the objects. Let's do transfer public share object, then we're going to pass in fruit. Oh no, sorry, other public share object, let's say share objects, then we're going to pass in fruit. So just like I said, it can hold also your vector can also hold um other data types of like stocks. Now rather than using stock, let me just create another stock, then let me name it apple. So I can just call it public stock apple. Then this apple now, let's say it can have a color attributes, can have a color. Let's say the identical apple, the red apple and green apple. So it's going to be of type string. Then size is going to be, let's say, type U64. Then I think let's just leave it like that. So now instead of just put this thing here, we can also give food. So this food is going to be holding maybe a vector of apple. So hope you understand. So I can just come here and put our so this is going to have the ability to store first, so we can pass it to an object, so it has to have the store ability. So now here to initialize it again, you have to do this. So that's it for vector. I recommend you go through the documentation and try to play around with the code, but I'm going to give you an assignment so that you can challenge yourself on it. Okay, for the assignment, what I want you to do is that create an object called school. Then the school should definitely have a name, then the number of classes in the school, and also the field called number of classes and number of students. Then the object also create a vector that has let's say that contains a data type of classes. So now something like this. Now let's say rather than fruits, it's going to be vector of classes. Rather than this apple here, it's going to be a vector of classes. Then this class, let's say here this is classes. So this class is also should hold another vector of students. Now, if you have these classes, this class now should have a name and also the number of students. So now let me explain to you what I mean. So now, rather than first, let me call this the school. This should be the school object. Then the school should have an ID, should have a name. It should have a name of type names can be type string. Then the number of classes, number of classes, and that can be of type U64. Then the number of students also, total number of students in the school. So let me say no students. So now the number of students should be of type U64. So this is how your object should look like. Then this object should now have classes, which is not going to be of vector classes. Then this your class is also, this your class object should have a let's say name of the class can be, let's say SS1 or junior class 1. So it should be, they should have a name. Then also it should also have students. So these students now should be of vector, let's say now students. It should be a vector of students. So you have to get another vector called student. Then also this one should have a number of students. So they should also have to store the number of students in the classes. So number of students. So that can be of type U64. So again, like I said, you have the student stock. You have to come up here and let's say create a student stocks. So let me just call it students. My stock can start with the small letter X. So student, then that can also have a store attribute. Now these students should have attributes of, let's say, the name of the student, the age, give whatever you like. Okay, let's say the age, um let's say name and age is enough. So now let's say the name and the age should be of type U64. So hope you understand. First of all, create a class, um a school object concerning a vector of classes, the class contains vector of students. Then this students should have a vector, sorry, the attributes, these attributes. So what I want you to do is that I want you to write a function which can actually first should use like create a class, then a function that can, number one, add classes, then another function that can get number of students in the class, then a function that can get the number of classes in the school. Then another function I want is that any function that can check if a class is empty, another function to check like I said, how many students in the class, then a function that can add, I've said it before, add students, then add classrooms, um a function that can remove a student from a class, another function that can remove a class from the school, then another function that can swap the index of two classes, another function that can swap the index, they can swap the index of two students, another function that can reverse the order in which the classrooms are arranged on the vector. Then I want another one to check if a student exists in the classroom, another function to check if a classroom exists in the school, then another function to find a student in a classroom, and another one is also to like find a class in the school. So I hope you understand. I'll be giving a detailed text, written text of the assignment side. I understand that better on the comment section, also on the GitHub repo. So you can just, so if you don't understand the assignment question, you can just like check the comment section. Sorry, check the description of the video. I actually drop a written text about the assignment. You can also visit the repo. I'll drop a link. Then you also find the assignment question there. Thank you very much. So if you have any question, you can ask them in the comment section. I'll always be here to reply, or feel free to DM me on X or Telegram. I'll drop my links below, so you can reach out to me on X. My DMs are open. So if you have any question, any clarity, or anything for me to clarify for you, I'll always be open. So thank you very much. In the next video, I'll try to provide the solution to the assignment I gave. So thank you very much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video.